Hey, man, like I said, I spoke it into existence. It's either a giant jinx or that's exactly how it's going to play out.
Welcome into Tapping Vegas. Last week was a great week for us, and this week we're breaking down UFC Fight Night, Borralho versus Cannonier. Bobby, I can't wait to talk about it with you. We're going to give you guys our 5 favorite fights for this card and what we're on. Bobby, we're starting off with my Nuck If You Buck fight of the night. Starting off hot, man. Why don't you break this one down for us?
Viacheslav Borshchev versus James Llontop. Interesting fight. Llontop's currently at a plus 185. Borshchev's at minus 225 right now. Viacheslav Borshchev is a guy who has very high on coming into the UFC. But since he made his debut 2 years ago, January 15th, he won a fight, lost 2 fights, won a fight, had a majority draw, and lost his most recent fight to Chase Hooper. And I picked him in that fight, and he got absolutely destroyed by Chase Hooper. Ever-loving shit beat out of him. And what really concerned me was, yes, I get to an extent Chase Hooper has improved as a striker as evidenced by that fight, but you should never under any circumstances be letting any version of Chase Hooper just take you to the cleaners in a striking match like Chase Hooper did to Viacheslav Borshchev. I mean, I don't care how much he improved. He looked like prime Max Holloway out there against Viacheslav Borshchev, and that is just some very concerning things to see because he is primarily a BJJ guy and like your stereotypical, prototypical butt scoot, crawl atop me, meet your doom BJJ guy too. Not even like a, Gilbert Burns aggressive wrestling to get the takedown BJJ guy. So what it boils down to me for this fight is – I can't say it because we'll get demonetized and we're not even monetized, but giant douche or turd sandwich to keep it PG for the people at home. Viacheslav Borshchev is a known commodity, I feel like, at this point. You know what you're getting, which unfortunately is aggressively average, trademarked by me. James Llontop, while I'm not exactly thrilled with, his resume and what he's done and everything thus far in the UFC, he's only had 1 fight since he got his Contender Series contract last September. Yes, he lost by rear naked choke, 4 minutes, 33 seconds into round 1. That's really terrible. But I want to see what he has. I want to see what he has going because at the time he met Padilla and he lost to Padilla. Padilla was on a 3-fight win streak in the regional scene. I know it's the regionals, but that was Padilla's UFC debut, and he beat Llontop. So, somebody's got to lose their debut. That's just the nature of the game. That's just the way it is. I'm hoping Llontop just lost because somebody had to, and that was his first real UFC fight, so maybe the nerves or whatever got too much to him. He made a stupid mistake, got caught. He has an opportunity to rebound. I feel like Borshchev doesn't. I feel like that's where the known commodity comes into play. Borshchev is what he is. I don't think he's going to get any better. He's probably going to get worse, and he's probably a cut candidate, especially if he loses this fight. Chris Padilla, it's too early to tell because he only has his next UFC fight after beating Llontop's coming up September 7th this year against Rong Zhu. So we'll see how Chris Padilla is. But once again, there's not a lot to work off of. So I'm really letting the X factors play some grace in my judgment and my analysis of this fight. And also the fact that based off all of this, I'm just really not understanding what about Borshchev coming off that honestly life-altering extreme beatdown, both of his eyes swollen shut. Like I said, it was insane how good he made Chase Hooper look striking, swelling both of that man's eyes shut completely, cutting the hell out of him, and then strangling him unconscious with a darce like nothing. I feel like he's coming back too fast. It was only May 11th that happened. That's huge, significant strike total he's absorbed, then got choked out. May, June, July, here we are in August. I feel like he's rushing back, and it's just a recipe for disaster. James Llontop it's a mystery box. And at this point, I'm more than comfortable going with the mystery box, especially at those odds, and especially since he's had longer to recover. And at least even though he got choked out, he just got choked out and that was it. It wasn't a prolonged, insane statistical strike absorbent beating. Then he got choked. It was pretty much quick and done in April 27th of this year, and he moved on with his life to hopefully rebound. So James Llontop, for all those reasons, at a plus 185, I'm going the money line. I could easily see Borshchev winning. I'm not faulting anybody for picking Borshchev. It's just the damage he took against who he took the damage from, how fast he's coming back from that damage, and just the pretty much known commodity of mediocrity that I feel like he's been. And I say that as somebody has mentioned who was a big Borshchev believer when he came in. He just hasn't translated. At least Llontop, there's an X factor and there's excuses to be made. We'll see if they pan out. What do you think?
Well, Bobby, you're on the side of Vegas, if that makes you feel any better. That's the side that Vegas wants to win, and we know Vegas wins a lot. You're also on the analytics side. So you have two big check marks by your pick. Right now, the fans voted for Borshchev, and if you guys want to be included in the fan votes, make sure you guys are following us on Twitter. That's where we post our polls. So please make sure you guys follow us. Head over there. We'd love to hear from you guys and your thoughts on the fights that we cover. And then you know a little bit ahead of time who we're going to be on also. I think that in this fight, we just saw Borshchev look really, really bad against Chase Hooper. But we forget how much hype Chase Hooper had. I think he was coming off of a loss. I think he lost a lot of his hype coming into that Borshchev fight. I think we're both on Borshchev. Bit us in the butt. Now, you don't want to get hurt again. But I'm looking at this. What concerns me the most is Llontop. He lost to a guy in his first UFC fight who had 6 regional losses. How do you have 6 regional losses and you lose to that guy? He's a striker, and James Llontop dominated his regional scene, but losing to this guy, maybe he's really good and we just haven't seen it yet. But if you get 6 losses before you even make it to the UFC, I'm not going to think very highly of you. Borshchev, he's an accomplished kickboxer. He can stuff takedowns, go to a ground and pound. 67% of the bets, 37% of the money. So there's a lot of signs pointing to your side, Bobby, on Llontop. There's a part of me that at 1-3-1 and minus 230, I'm really surprised there's so many bets on this. And I think there's so many bets on Borshchev because he's the bigger name, Slava Claus. People want to throw their money on him. But I think we're seeing a lot of sharp money coming on the other side. Dude's so much younger. Borshchev 1-3-1 in his last 5 fights. I just can't bring myself to hop on the Llontop side, and I have to go with Borshchev.
I don't blame you, man. It's just like I said, at this point, I'd prefer a mystery box.
Yeah, $5 or what's in the box. I'll take the box.
Yeah, right. Could be $5, but I'm more tantalized by the prospect of it being 10 because the box isn't even $5 for Borshchev. For Borshchev, there's $1.50 in there.
Right. That's such a good point. That is a good point. Let's move on to this next fight. We have Dennis Buzukja versus Francis Marshall, another guy that hasn't had a whole bunch of time in the UFC. Buzukja, we talked about him last time. I believe we picked against him. He ended up winning, but I'm still not sold on him, man. I still think he bullies cans. He takes some big hits and usually stays up. Francis Marshall, he's vulnerable to the takedowns, but I don't think Buzukja is going to be coming in for the takedowns. I think this is going to be a stand and bang. Francis Marshall's got the good fakes, good movement, and knockout power. Right now, Vegas is on the side of Buzukja, and I guess it's so hard going against the side of Vegas. The analytics point to Francis Marshall. The fan vote was for Francis Marshall. Maybe I'm just a hater. Maybe that's what's wrong with me, and that's why I won't take Dennis. But I think I have to be with Marshall on this one. What do you think, Bobby?
I'm interested how it's the side of Vegas, but you're getting Buzukja as an underdog at plus 124.
Because 73% of the money is on Marshall and 75% of the bets. So that surprised me.
Yeah. That's interesting because since there's no other props available for this on DraftKings other than Buzukja at plus 124, Marshall at minus 148, you're only getting money line. There's nothing else to go off of. This is another fucking disgusting one to have to try to figure out who's going to win because you look at Dennis Buzukja. He's coached by Matt Serra and by Ray Longo. He trains with Aljamain. He trains with Marab. He's around all those fucking guys, even Matt Frivola. Like, even though Matt Frivola is not good, you still have to include him in there. He is a UFC vet nonetheless, record notwithstanding. But he just has not, like, it's taken him 4 years to even get to the UFC. He first tried out for Contender Series in 2020, lost, didn't get an offer, obviously, because of that. Tried again in 2022, won, but still didn't get the contract. And then he went back to the regional, Maverick MMA, UAE Warriors, back to CFFC, which is actually a really good feeder league. And then after he got a rear naked choke win there, they finally called him up against Sean Woodson on a short notice fight. He lost to Jamal Emmer, straight right and hammer fist. Won against Connor Matthews in his last fight, left hook to hammer fist. So it's taken him a while to get to this point, but it's like he's had 3 fights pretty quickly, August last year, November last year, then March this year. So at least he's staying active. And he's only won 1, lost 2, got finished in one of them. It's just there's not much to go off of. There's just, I mean, the only other losses he had were his Contender Series in 2020, where he lost to Bagdasarian. Then he lost on the regional scene in 2018. So his losses are few and far between, but it's like they're coming at him fast now to where he's 12-4 since he got in the UFC. And it's just scary because it's like, is that an indication that it took him a while to get here for a reason, and that reason was he wasn't prepared? Or is it just kind of like the natural learning curve of being in the UFC? And then, you know, how many people, we're going to talk about one of them later on this card, in Angela Hill, who started off very spotty and rough, win, lose, a la Dan Hooker we talked about last weekend, for example. Like, I can point out examples who were able to turn it around like Hooker and Angela Hill. I can point out examples that weren't able to turn it around, like Artem Lobov. Once he started skidding, he wasn't able to turn it around. Michael Johnson wasn't able to turn it around. Like, some of these people just remain spotty, and it's very difficult to just completely turn around to become an elite person in that division, especially at 145 where this fight's taking place at. It's just tough because the only thing that's making me want to go Buzukja is the fact it's the side of Vegas and you getting them at an underdog level on the side of Vegas. That's the only thing that gives me pause, because I do believe Francis Marshall, it's the same story, right? 2022, he gets his Contender Series win, so he gets his contract, makes his debut December 2022, wins with the punches round 1 over Marcelo Rojo. April last year, loses a split decision to William Gomez. Isaac Bulgarian, who's also fighting on this card, finishes him last August in round 1, hasn't fought since then. So he's 1-2 in his 3 UFC fights. So there's just so much here that just makes it such a stupid fight to pick that the only thing that's coming down is I'm taking Buzukja just because it's Vegas and because you can get him as an underdog while also being on the Vegas side. So I kind of like that. So I'm going with it simply because that's the only edge I see in something that is just about as much of a pick'em as I believe anything on this card.
I think that's smart, man. That was just about enough to sway me too. I think the film I watched, I was just a little bit too high on Francis, and we'll see. I could definitely see that one coming back and bite me in the butt, man. How about you take this next fight, Bobby? Who are we on next?
This next one is going to be Edmen Shahbazyan and Gerald Meerschaert. So Edmen Shahbazyan and Gerald Meerschaert. It's actually a decent fight. This is pretty much good matchmaking in my humble opinion. So I like this fight because Shahbazyan is the guy who everybody thought was going to be the next big thing in the middleweight division. Edmen Shahbazyan trained with Edmund Taverdian, I believe his name was. He's infamously the coach of Ronda Rousey, known for head movement. Oh, my God, she just got head kick KO'd by Holly Holm, and she's now on a skid. So Edmen Shahbazyan was called the Golden Boy because that was him. He was the Azora High, the prince that was promised of 185. And it has not ended well for him because the last time you thought that Edmen Shahbazyan was going to be relevant was 2018 because he won his Contender Series contract. That's how he got in the UFC. Ground and pound round one finish over Antonio Jones. Really made good use of that relation to Ronda Rousey and that connection through Taverdian being the head coach between the two of them and that whole Jim's connection to her legacy. Split decision win against Darren Stewart. Elbows and punches finish over Charles Byrd. Jack Marshman, he choked out in round one. Brad Tavares KO'd stiff with a head kick in 2019. And then after that, he's been pretty bad. Ground and pounded out by Derek Brunson, August 2020. Unanimous decision by Hermanson, May 2021. Lost to Imavov, elbows from Crucifix. November 2021, Dolce Lambucha, he was able to finish. And December 2022, lost to Anthony Hernandez by ground and pound. Won in his most recent, which is March of this year against AJ Dobson, left hook to ground punches in round one. But I mean, the last time the man was really relevant was 2019. And with as long as he's been in the UFC, because 2018 is a pretty good chunk of a fighter's career now at this point, especially when you're standing at 13-4. And before you started that UFC skid, you were undefeated coming into the UFC. So all of those are hard UFC losses and hard UFC mileage. We're not talking about, standard I'm commuting 20, 30 minutes to work and back each day mileage. No, we're talking about you're taking a shitty little Honda Civic and you're off-roading that motherfucker in the middle of Georgia with nothing but gravel and pine trees, and you're slamming that son of a bitch into a ditch and trying to tow it out every damn day. Like, you're not just commuting to your bullshit email job, just, oh, look at me, off I go in my car. Like, no, you're slamming this son of a bitch around like a sorority on Saturday night. Let's just say that. So Edmen Shahbazyan, it's interesting because all that being said, with how much this man has been absolutely just destroyed and his tenure in the UFC meat grinder, and honestly, it makes me wonder now as I'm going over all this if maybe he wasn't kept around just because of his connections to Ronda Rousey behind the scenes and kind of, maybe her giving him, some like, hey, please keep this guy around. He works hard. He's young. He can turn it around type shit. I think anybody else, Dana would have been like, hey, get the hell out of here. I've cut people for less type thing. So it's interesting. But Gerald Meerschaert, grizzled vet, 36-17, a lot of miles on him too, 36 years old, starting to approach the end of his career, but he's lucky because he's in middleweight. Usually middleweight and up are where you can compete into your, closer to 40. You'll have more of a longevity aspect to you for whatever reason, as opposed to the smaller weight classes. I think it has to do with your reflexes and shit. Once that goes out in like flyweight and bantamweight, you're easy pickings. Doesn't really matter as much in the heavier divisions where you don't have guys that agile and crazy explosive to begin with type thing. But the X factor for this is he's had a lot of grappling matches. He's lost his recent grappling matches. I don't give a shit about that because when you're losing to Craig Jones, probably the most accomplished grappler out right now, it's between him and Gordon Ryan, just depending on who your popularity contest favors more than anything rather than the accolades. But lost to Craig Jones, lost to Joe Pfeiffer. Joe Pfeiffer's a decent grappler. Also lost to Joe Pfeiffer in MMA. No shame in that. Lost a split decision in MMA to Petrosky. That's fine. I'm not really fucked up about it. So really in the past, since 2022, in the past 2 years, August of 2022 up until now, his only MMA losses are to Joe Pfeiffer, April last year, and Andre Petrosky by split decision August last year. And then he beat Brian Barberena in his most recent fight, choking him out in round 2, March of this year. Beat Bruno Silva with a guillotine back in August 2022. So he's won 2, lost 2 since 2022. And before that, he was on a tear. Like, he lost to Jotko in April 2022, but choked out Stoltz Flutes back when Stoltz Flutes actually had a lot of hype coming off his Contender Series win. Choked him out. Chalked out Mahmoud Muradov. Chalked out Botos Fabinski. Like before that, the guy hadn't lost since 2020 when he fought Hamzat. And once again, no shame in losing to Hamzat. So I think people are a little bit they log on to Tapology and they see all the red and they're like, oh, wow, those are all MMA fights. No, there's 2 grappling fights, two MMA fights. And the context is since 2021, he's only lost 3 MMA fights and he's won 3 MMA fights. So there's nothing crazy going on there. He's 3-3, which isn't ideal, but this isn't indicative of a man just getting his ass beat pillar to post like a scalded dog, like he has nothing to offer, especially against Shahbazyan, who is 3, 4, 5, 6, and his last 6, he's 2-4. To me, even though Shahbazyan's young, he's 10 years older. 10 years younger. That's the only advantage he has, is being 10 years younger. And sure, that's a huge advantage in terms of like your physical, prime and all that. But how much of that, I wonder, is counteracted by the extreme beatings this man has been taking over the years, and not only how that affects you mentally, but that affects your psyche, that affects your confidence, your ability to like, wow, do I really belong here? Like Meerschaert's no stranger to a loss. So in this case, he's like, I get it. I'm a 3-3 guy in my last 6, but at least I'm not a 2-4 guy in my last 6. And I'm 36 years old and I'm in a, pretty decent division right now where I fought all killers. And I've only lost mainly to the killers of the division, like the top guys. And it's like, for all those reasons, it's just really strange to me that this isn't a way closer fight. And even since I last checked it, it's still going heavy Shahbazyan. And I just don't get it because Shahbazyan's all the way up to a minus 310. Meerschaert money line alone's a plus 250. And like I said, I only see the 10-year age difference, and the name that Shahbazyan has is the only things I can think of to explain this, the name and the age, because everything else to me just says this is going to be the crafty vet upset. This is what Gerald Meerschaert thrives on, is making a name off these guys who people still think have a little bit of hope in them and a little bit of hype left, until Gerald Meerschaert literally chokes it out of them because he is the submission king. 78% of his 28 wins. 28 wins of the 36 total he has, 78% have come by submission. Like, it speaks for itself. And Edmen Shahbazyan is no stranger to getting finished. And even though it hasn't necessarily been by sub, it's been by KO TKO, I easily see a situation where Gerald Meerschaert rocks him because his chin's probably compromised and he chokes him unconscious. Like, the strikes could easily set up a sub, or he just goes straight for the takedown after mixing in a little bit of the striking and then choke Shahbazyan out. The only thing I see people thinking about is Shahbazyan is just going to go in there, he's going to pull a Hamzat, and he's going to just instantly just flatline Meerschaert because they think he's going to be starstruck like Meerschaert was against Hamzat. Hamzat, I get why you'd be starstruck against and why you'd be a little intimidated when the guy you're going up against has finished his last 3 opponents in like 2 combined minutes of fight time. Like, I don't see how he's going to be intimidated by Shahbazyan after beating up AJ Dobson for his first win in 2 years. Like, I just don't see where that intimidation factor comes into play. That's the only thing I can think of, and I could be revisiting this later for a haymaker. What do you think?
So the line, I agree. Like, the minus 310 to plus 250 is wild. But when you're looking at it from the money standpoint, Vegas actually nailed this one, because right now 80% of the bets and 80% of the money are coming in on Edmen Shahbazyan. And that's going to end up pretty much in almost a draw. So whichever side wins, if the plus 250 wins, that's fine. They got to pocket 80% of the pot. So Vegas doesn't really care about this fight, which is crazy considering that would have to pay out a plus 250, which I think is, that would be the biggest one on the 5 that we're covering. I'm going to go with Edmen here. The analytics point to Edmen. It was also a draw in the fan poll vote, which was kind of interesting. So Vegas and the fans both tied. I think Edmen has the power. And all these losses that he's had, like you said, were to these really good guys. I think with Meerschaert, I think he can come out. I think he can knock him out. I mean, both these guys have taken a lot of damage. So if you wanted to maybe take the under, or that this fight doesn't go the distance, I wouldn't hate it. The thing with Shahbazyan is I feel like he needs to get the win early, because the longer this fight goes, I think the more it starts to favor Meerschaert. So you can't take Shahbazyan money line at minus 310. And I looked at the double method, so the KO and decision was what I was looking at. It brings it down to minus 250. So I don't love that either. So then I was looking at Shahbazyan KO or sub minus 185. And then if I want just the knockout, which is the method I would take, the single method, is minus 160. So I'd rather just pay up the extra 25 cents and get the double method of the KO sub, just in case it does go that way. I think, like you were saying, if it is sub, I feel like it's more the side of Meerschaert. But maybe something crazy happens. We saw Molly McCann get the sub before. The money in Vegas are just like so spot on in this fight. It's not giving me any idea of which way to go. So I think I'm going to take the younger guy and just think that he can get a finish.
Fair play, man. I just can't go in on Shahbazyan at 2019 odds anymore. You know,
That's
I could easily see it. I'm not calling anybody a fool for doing it, but it's just outrageous.
I really don't like that money line. I feel like that's a bad bet. If you can't be getting paid out 1-3 odds on Shahbazyan.
Yeah, I don't know who's asleep at the wheel on that, but I'll like I said, nobody's crazy for taking Shahbazyan. I'll probably be a fucking dumbass that gets fucking ratioed in the comments, even though I ratioed a bunch of y'all last week with Steve Ursig. But
right,
I could easily be proven wrong, but it just something don't sit right in my plums with getting Shahbazyan. I'd love to go back to 2018, 2019, travel back into the past. I would if I had a time machine. But by getting this man at those odds ain't what I mean by that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. Let's talk this next fight. We've got some women's MMA. Angela Hill versus Tabatha Ricci. Angela Hill, I thought her wrestling looked much, much, much better in her last fight. She's got plenty of experience. I think she's got a good strike volume, better than Tabatha. Tabatha, she can eat shots, low volume, has to win control fight, has to win the control time to win the fight. I had to look it up. Tabatha Ricci, not part of Fight Nerds, so I can get that out of the way. Don't have to be worried about that. The analytics and the fans both side with Tabatha Ricci. The Vegas side is on Angela Hill right now. 35% of the bets, 32% of the money at only a plus 102. I think that pulls me over, and I have to go to Angela Hill. If she didn't look like her wrestling defense had gotten so much better in her last fight, I would be a lot more hesitant, especially we're seeing this 10-year age gap between these two ladies. Tabatha Ricci, I think we might have 1 billion subscribers if we were giving away a signed pair of fight shorts from her. But I just think Angela Hill's going to have the volume, and if Ricci can't control the entire fight, or Ricky can't control the fight the entire time and have her hands on her, I just don't see a path for her to win against Hill.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting fight because I've changed my opinion on it since I've seen the odds come out, because this is the deepest women's division in MMA by far. Strawweight is the best division in women's MMA, in my humble opinion, loaded with talent. Before I have somebody in the comments fucking white knighting for Angela Hill, because I'd be the one they'd fucking white knight for, which just makes absolutely no sense. At least Tabatha Ricci, you can use the excuse she's an attractive, successful female fighter. Angela Hill, I don't know what you're going to do mental gymnastics like Simone Biles to justify sticking up for her on the internet defense force. But this is what I'm getting at with this. This is a terrible fucking fight. It's going to be god-awful. And you know what's going to make it so sweet, and the only reason why I included this on the betting odds? Tabatha Ricci in her last 2 fights has went to split decision. Angela Hill is the queen of winning controversial decisions and split or majority decisions. Somebody's going night in heavyweight fights. Somebody's going to go to a split or majority decision when Angela Hill and Tabatha Ricci fight, baby. I don't know which one it'll be, but one of them's going to be screwing the other in a very controversial, terrible decision. And we just saw last week somebody score the Tai Tuivasa fight 30-27 for Tai Tuivasa. So you want to talk about controversy? Yeah, that could definitely happen. And right now, if you take Angela Hill to win by split or majority decision as a prop bet, that's plus 500 for a yes. Tabatha Ricci by a split or majority decision, that's plus 500 for a yes. So either woman I pick, I'm trying to figure out who it's going to be because I've changed and flip-flopped so much just because of how aggressively average and mediocre this fight is. You best be damn sure I'm putting it on the split decision at that plus 500 because it's got that written all over it, baby. I love it. I love being able to say that about a fight, that it's going to go to a split or majority decision instead of a knockout or a submission. That's the type of shit I tune into MMA for. I don't know about you losers, but I'm a superior. I'm not casual.
Did you see the over-under? The over
No.
for this fight, the over 2.5 is minus 600.
Yeah, I did see that you were not going to get anything for taking like a unanimous
No.
decision or just flat out decision. That's why you got to take majority split because this has a very, very uncomfortably real chance of happening no matter who you pick to win it. It's going to be controversial and bland, and it actually is pretty significant to be able to get it at a plus 500. I'm going to go with you on this because as much as I don't like Angela Hill, she's a little engine that could. She should have been cut a long ass time ago because she's 17-13 in the promotion. And yeah, she's on a 2-fight win streak now. But before that, especially in that stretch from August 2021 to May 2022 when she dropped 3 in a row, all by decision. She should have been just kaput. She should have been done. I don't know why she was coming around, but whatever. So since I don't like her, Angela Hill, and yeah, I'm going to take Angela Hill. You can already get her decent. This is why I switched to her because originally I was on Ricci because Ricci was the underdog. I don't know what caused the shift, but once I saw that and in this bullshit, and now she's the plus 105. Tabatha is the minus 125. Yeah, I'm going to go Angela Hill, but I don't want just the money line. I'm taking that. Yes, it's going to be a split majority decision at plus 500.
Whew. I like that, Bobby. Man. By the end of this episode, I might have to turn onto that because that's really good. That's a hell of a find, dude.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the title fight. Bobby, take it away, man.
Yeah, Caio Borralho versus Gerald Cannonier. Jared Cannonier. It's going to be your main event of the night. Cannonier's plus 205. Borralho's at minus 250. Normally, this would be one of those fights where I'm like, man, you're counting out Jared Cannonier. Not this fight. Nope, not this fight. Jared Cannonier on the wrong side of 40, 41 years of age, actor of fucking age. Not even just that. Once again, there are those guys out there, Gerald Cannonier, actually, up until recently, Yoel Romero, those type of guys do exist. Even Daniel Cormier was getting up there and still kicking younger guys' asses, holding off the young guns. Robert Whittaker could probably be considered that. I know Robert Whittaker's not that old, but he could probably be in that camp now. You can definitely fight in MMA and still win and still be successful and still destroy young guys and, dash their hopes up against rocks and be, in your late 30s, early 40s in MMA. But I don't think that guy's Cannonier anymore. I really didn't like how he looked in the Imavov fight. And when the cliff comes, man, that's the thing about it. You don't think it's there. You don't think it's coming, and then boom, you're just driving off that damn thing and you're in a fiery crash. And that's just kind of how I feel about Cannonier. And maybe the market's going to overcorrect itself and I'm just freaking out at how bad that Imavov loss was, but it looked like he was barely touched and he just got wobbled and he just got finished. And it was just very bizarre to see a guy usually as durable as Cannonier just get touched up like that by Imavov and just finish, because Robert Whittaker beat him pillar to post in 2020 on that Khabib Gaethje card, broke Cannonier's arm, like bruised the shit out of his ribs, just tore him up, and he still couldn't finish him after just pounding him. And for Imavov to just do it, it's just weird, man. And I get it. He's lost to Whitaker, he's lost to Adesanya, and he's lost to Imavov. Those are the only three losses the man's had in 4 years, and those are to the elite of the division. I get it. And before that, he hadn't even lost since 2018. But like I said, that's the thing about the cliff. You're 40 years old, you don't think it's there, and then one day you wake up and you're driving off the edge, and before you know it, just as much as it's been, I hadn't lost since 2018, and I went on a streak and I won these fights and I got a shot at the title and I lost my title shot. Like, before you know it, you wake up and you're like, all right, now I haven't won a fight in 4 years. Now I haven't won a fight in 3 years, and you're BJ Penn. And before you know it, you're getting knocked out in a bar by a 400-pound Samoan dude, like just on the concrete, code cocked, or like Vince Young getting knocked out at bars. It's just ridiculous. I think that's going to be Jared Cannonier. I mean, the Fight Nerds, Caio Borralho. I've been saying the Fight Nerds team ever since John Silva was the main guy. I was blowing that horn on. I was telling everybody that would listen about John Silva and how that gym was a problem. He was the main one that stuck out to me, along with Mauricio Ruffy, whatever. Since then, I've learned the one female. They have that one female there. They have Borralho there. They have Carlos Pratis there. Who else? Like John Silva, Pratis, Borralho, the female fighter, Huffy.
Too many good dudes.
Yeah. There's a lot of good people coming out of that gym right now, and it just really was under the radar until we started talking about John Silva and until we started blowing the John Silva trumpet. And that gym is just producing guys and a girl now that look like the absolute next things in their division. That next level and generation of the promising Brazilian talent is finally coming back to the UFC to reclaim some of that glory for Brazil. And how do you not think that about Borralho? The man has had to get 2 Contender Series fights and 2 Contender Series wins just to get a contract. One is Contender Series fight, September 2021. Came back in October 2021. Not even a month later, came back, got the win with a finish, strikes from top, round 1, finally got his contract. Unanimous decision in his debut, April 2022. Beat Armin Petrosian 2022. Mahmoud Meredov beat him in 2022. Beat Olajaychuk with a rear naked choke April last year. Beat Abus Magomedov November last year. Just this past May, knocked out Paul Craig with a left cross. The man is active. That's another thing that you want to see from these fighters, and they're active. John Silva's been active. Borralho's been active. I'm about to get gangbanging up in here with the active status, dog. I'm about to have flashbacks with the level of activity going on right now. We're getting active. You know what that means. You know what that means when we get active up in here. And this man is on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fight win streak in the UFC against UFC level competition. And he started off not finishing them. And what's scary is now he's starting to finish them. As the competition gets better, like Olajaychuk's a name, so he's like a litmus test in this division in 185 to see if you can hang. So you have to finish them as your rite of passage. He finished them in round 2, choked him out like it was nothing. Abus Magomedov, another big name in the division, comfortably beat him in a unanimous decision. Finished Paul Craig, a perennial top guy hanging around the echelons of that division. Finished him like it was nothing. He's getting better at finishing as his career goes on. That is an insane skill to develop in your very young, very active UFC career to now start finishing competition as the competition gets tougher. That is just insane. You do not see that happen, and that is just incredibly impressive. 16-1 overall record. I don't know that I'd be so confident that he can finish Cannonier because I've already talked about Cannonier's durability and how Whitaker couldn't do it. But I could easily see myself eating those words come Saturday night because Borralho, if anybody's going to do it, it could be him. And at plus 350 for a KO TKO, that is tantalizing. At plus 300 by sub, it is tantalizing because you got to take the sting off that money line at minus 250. So I don't know. Maybe after listening to you, I might be able to swing it one way or another if you end up picking Borralho. If not, I'll have to think about it while you're talking. But, I mean, Borralho just seems like the wave. He seems like the future. Could I see Cannonier, holding off the guy and this being a huge upset? Unfortunately, yes. If anybody can do it, it can be Cannonier. Just like if anybody can beat him, it's Borralho. If anybody can hold off the young wolf, it could be Cannonier. But I just honestly, even the selfish part of me hopes that's not true so that the division can move on. Because my biggest complaint with the UFC right now, especially at these levels, the 185 and above, and especially 170 until the title was just, clarified and Bilal won. 170 was a logjam, constantly held up. 185 needs new blood. 205 desperately needs new blood. Heavyweight desperately needs new blood. So there is the selfish side of me that just wants Cannonier to, bow out while he's still on good terms. Only 2 losses in a row instead of 3, 4, 5, however many it takes. Borralho keeps climbing up, and we start to just get things moving again and get some new and interesting matchup shakeup. What do you think?
I think that's a great breakdown, Bobby. I think Cannonier is the best fighter that Borralho has faced yet. Don't even feel like that's much of a question. As much as I like Paul Craig, I just think Cannonier clears Paul Craig by quite a bit. He's a good striker. And I do think it was an early stoppage in the Imavov fight. I think that the ref didn't need to jump in and intervene right then. But he did, and you got to move on and fight your next fight. And one of the things that I noticed the most about Borralho is that he doesn't press. So he's not just running in willy-nilly. He will do the blitzing, kind of like Drickus does. And he does it not straight at you into your fist. He gets you with lateral movement. He goes to the side. He won't just blitz in straight to eat a punch. And the best thing about him, and I think the fight nerds in general, and we don't talk about it a lot in MMA, but it's the game planning. And like we talk about watching tapes, not really a big thing in MMA or combat sports in general. But the way that he fought Paul Craig, you could tell that they had sat down and laid out an entire plan of this is how we're going to attack him, because he would fight him, punch him, knock him down, and instead of jumping on top of him and like just continuing to beat on him, he said Paul Craig gets his wins by submitting guys when they engage with him on the ground. So I'm not going to do it. So he would knock him down and he would just wave him back on up. Come back up. I'm not coming down there with you, until he ended up putting Paul Craig out cold. Like he's like, I'm not going to go down and chase this, which is, I think instinctually for a fighter is hard to do. Is not, you see your guy down and injured, not going in for the kill. So he can show that he will stick to a game plan. And I think even if Cannonier is the super tough fighter, which he is, I just think that Borralho is tough himself and will have the game plan to go in and get this win. I don't know if he can finish it. Also, we're looking at Vegas is on the side of Cannonier, unfortunately, at the plus 200, because we're seeing 89% of the money and 79% of the bets are on Borralho. The analytics are on Borralho. The fan vote is on Borralho. We're both going to be on Borralho. Looking at the methods, even like the double methods, nothing looks great to me. I think I would rather, and I hate doing this too, because this minus 245. I don't like doing anything like over 200, but Cannonier's just so tough. And in this fight, I just don't know. I could see it going all the ways, because I could see Borralho not being able to finish him, and it goes to decision. I could see him getting the submission, because Cannonier, I think, is the inferior grappler. I could see him getting knocked out too. It's just, I like Borralho, so I'm going to go with him. I'm just going to put it on the money line and just say, you know what? It's not going to be a huge payout, but I'd rather have the safety.
Yeah, that's how I feel. It's just, I feel like it's a safe bet because, like, for all the points you made, I just don't think he's going to be able to finish Cannonier, unfortunately.
Right.
I just don't feel comfortable enough saying that because Cannonier is very scary.
Right.
But, I mean, it's between this fight and Shahbazyan and Meerschaert for me to do, like, my haymaker on, since I already made a pretty big bet on Angela Hill by split decision at plus 500. I got to find something else to keep just loading us up, and that's why I'm between this fight and Shahbazyan, because really there's nothing else to me that makes sense quite as much. Other than maybe Well, we don't even know what it is. Buzukja doesn't have prop bets for whatever reason. It just has money line available. I guess because it's still a relatively new fight that just got added. I probably would have put something on Buzukja by like KO TKO, but I can't do that since I don't know what it is.
Right.
And I just don't feel confident about Llontop Borshchev to do anything. So it's just really between these two. And it's like, do I think Borralho is that good? Of course. But once again, it just makes me hesitant because Cannonier couldn't be finished by Whitaker. And I get it. I already said once the cliff comes, it comes. There's no warning. It's there. So this could easily be the guy to do it. But damn. Yeah. What I see happening more than that is I hear Gerald Meerschaert climbing on top of Edmen Shahbazyan and strangling the life out of him. So what I see way more than that. That's just the problem. As a realistic thing, and especially if I can get that at plus 450 for a Meerschaert sub, that's insane.
It's better than anything you can get for Borralho. And I'm saying that as somebody not on Meerschaert.
Right. I guess it's got to be that. Because I'm already getting a fat money line if he wins at plus 250. But then if he also strangles him, then I'm getting a bunch of money that way. And it's like, man. Or do I get really cheeky and I say Angela Hill KO TKO by plus 1,000? Death by Snoo Snoo.
Yeah. Right.
All right, I can't fucking do that. I've already got plus 500 on Angela Hill. I can't be that degenerate and deep in the game, dear God. Yeah, I already got good stuff on Meerschaert money line. I'm also going to say Meerschaert sub. Okay. I hate doubling up on guys or girls like that, but it's not even going to take much of the edge off Borralho if he does finish, is the sad thing. So it's like, if I'm going to swing for the fences, I might as well swing for the fences, a fat money line plus a fat sub. So,
yeah. And I got to give you your flowers to hitting the biggest bet on Tapu Vegas history last week with your haymaker, dude. The plus 600 Drickus sub. So I got to give you your flowers, man. You even had a couple people on social media, which they'll shit on you if you have bad takes. But usually you don't hear anything if they're good. There were some people giving you your flowers, man. That was impressive.
I appreciate it, man. You were the one who was brave enough to actually go on just straight DDP money line ticket, which was still nice. So you're very, very on point with that. But I appreciate it, man. That was my way of still being with my boy. And still like, you know what, fuck it. If my boy can get it done, though, I'm going to be all in on my boy on some crazy shit like plus 600 for a sub. And sure as shit, he was losing the fight up until then. So it was so satisfying to like have my ass covered if he was going to go to that decision loss like it was looking like, but also get the double whammy of not only was it a profitable outcome for the show, but it was also the outcome I personally wanted. And it is so rare for those two things to coexist on this show together. So I was fucking over the moon. Between that and getting Kaikar France at a plus 145 when everybody was jockeying on Steve Ursig, it was beautiful, man. It was beautiful.
It'll be one that we talk about for ages. And it's not even our most profitable week. It was just really satisfying.
And we broke our own record. That's what you were talking about, the biggest bet. We break our own records. That we're in a league of our own. Before that, you know what we did? We broke the record on the plus 500 Ovent St. Preux money line when he fought Kennedy and Chokwu. I called that one. I was like, OSP is going to win the most disgusting, sloppy, gassed out decision. And that's exactly what that fight was live. Both of these dudes just about to be coated in the middle of the ring. Bring out the freaking defibrillators for both of them. Dada 5000 style. That's what it was about to be. Dada and Kimbo in there. And he pulled it off against Nchokwu, and we broke our own record. Like, we don't break other people's record because nobody else out there is giving you these bets like us. We're breaking our own records. Plus 500, we break that by 100 with our own bet. And we're going to keep doing shit like that from now until eternity, just in a league of our own.
And you managed to sneak a plus 500 in there again today.
Exactly, on something.
Sneaking it in.
Folks, come on. it's women's MMA, and even though it's the most elite women's division, it is by far not the most elite fighters in that division. Split or majority decision for either one. Even if you took Ricci, even if you bet Ricci and you don't go with us, at least give us the courtesy of like giving us the flowers, because I mentioned that even Ricci at plus 500 for a split or majority is on the table. At least go in the comments and be like, hey, thanks for pointing that out if you hit on it and Ricci does win. Because come on, it's either going to go one of two ways. Now that I spoke it into existence, it's either going to happen or it's going to be like Jorge Masvidal beating KO. Like they're going to beat Jorge's record, and like Angela Hill or Tabatha Ricci, one's going to flying knee the other in like 3 seconds, and it's going to be the most obnoxious Scarface Conor McGregor bullshit. Angela Hill comes out with a coat on, and she's like, "It was 3 seconds. It was 3 seconds." And Tabatha Ricci's like, "I beat by 13 seconds." Like, come on now.
I almost want to take Ricci by the split decision now, so we have 2 plus 500s just in case.
Hey, man, like I said, I spoke it into existence. It's either a giant jinx or that's exactly how it's going to play out. The most controversial, just limp-dicked, bullshit-ass split decision. One judge is falling asleep halfway through. There better not be any boxing on. I hadn't checked to see if boxing's on. One judge is watching boxing under the table or some shit, half-ass judging it. Like, you know, the possibilities are endless. The possibilities for fuckery are endless, especially after last week.
You're so right. I think I'm going to stay on Hill. Just that way we can double dip if she does win. But, Bobby, thank you for joining me, man. Hopefully another profitable week. Everybody, if you watch, hopefully you guys get to make some money with us this weekend. Make sure you guys like and subscribe so you see all of our content. NFL, the season is going to be over. This is the last week of NFL preseason. I'll be back on Intentional Lounging week 1. And me and Bobby are going to be doing a fantasy show. And if you guys would like to win a pair of signed Merab Dvalishvili shorts, make sure you guys watch our video that's going to be coming out about the Sphere, about that card. Make sure you guys leave us some comments and try to win that pair of signed shorts. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Peace.
Better start listening to the Better in Green podcast. You will not regret it. Trust me, trust me, trust me. And hey, I'm Dean Blandino.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Better in Green, eh? To Better in Green, eh? To Better in Green, eh? Listen in and cash out. That's what it's all about. Come on, let's make cash now. We always on spot and we cover all spot from the bottom to the top, hey. Shout out to Ethan, shout out to Wyatt, shout out to Ben. Welcome, welcome to our podcast, Better in Green.